Hello and welcome back to our acting master class. Today we're going to resume where we left off from our very first one, where we really just kind of broke down breaking into the industry and kind of just going through the details of everything from the logistics of becoming a mainstream actor to headshots, acting reels, landing an agent. Today we're going to actually deep dive into those things and look specifically at headshots, at your acting reels, and also at landing an agent, etc., and briefly also about your resume. So let's get started. Now, your acting headshot, the headshot that you use to submit to different projects, is probably the most powerful tool in actually getting seen and actually having opportunities to begin with. Because that headshot is actually the first thing that casting directors will see when they're looking to book a project. Usually, it's not based off of your reel. They don't have time to see that. It's not based off of, it's not based off of your resume. Again, they don't have really time to see that unless they know who you are, which at that point, we're on a different level there and the headshot doesn't become as important as your background. But when you're first starting out, when you're trying to get your first few roles, when they're trying to find that character and what they might look like, the first thing that they're going to look at is your headshot. So it's super important to have a really good one because that is probably gonna make or break getting called in and having those opportunities to begin with. So it's really important that you guys get it right. Now, some obvious tips, is to not over glamorize them. That's a common mistake. Make sure that they look like you. The worst thing you can do is take a headshot. It looks way different from who you are as a person, or it's way outdated. It's 5, 6, 7 years old or whatever, super old, and they call you in and you don't look like what you look like on the headshots. That's gonna be a huge red flag to casting directors. That casting director may not call you back in again. You don't wanna do that. You don't wanna burn that bridge. Just make sure you're on top of it. Make sure you have a good solid headshot. Invest in the money to hire a good headshot photographer to make sure that they know what they're doing and get you a solid headshot, because that is going to get you work, or at least opportunities that can lead to work. So some general pointers is, if you are a girl, you don't want to be too heavy into the makeup scene. You want to be as natural as possible. Casting directors are always going to look to make sure that you actually look like who you look like, and they want the bare minimum of what you are, right? They don't want you to dress up and be dolled up, because they could do that. They know they can make you look good, right? With the right makeup crew, whatever. They just want to see who you are and make sure that you're comfortable with being who you are. If you are a guy, it is important to be as generic as possible. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I know you're thinking a lot like, hey, Sam, you're supposed to be unique. You're telling us to make sure that we should stand out. Yes, definitely. But what I mean by that is don't be so out there to get attention that it actually hurts you, that it actually paints you in a bad light, in the sense that, for example, if you're a guy and you are, say, an Asian guy like me, right? And I suddenly decide to dye my hair pink, right? That's crazy. Here's the thing. Casting directors know that they could dye your hair pink if they wanted to, but chances are they're not going to. It's going to be a headache for them to deal with to begin with. So keep your hair black, because it's going to be able to allow them to have the imagination to paint you into these different characters that they're casting for, rather than you've already created a picture for them. You've already painted an image to them that now they can't get out of their head. Because let's be honest, if I had pink hair, if I had blonde hair, it's going to be pretty hard for you to get that image out of your head. And that's going to limit a lot of the opportunities, a lot of the roles that you can play. So, for example, if you are a guy with long hair, maybe just let it loose, let it be as natural and as normal as possible. Putting it up into a ponytail, maybe not the best idea. You want it to be natural. They could probably imagine you in a ponytail. Same with women too, is that if you are also dyeing your hair, if you have a crazy color, it's just gonna really paint you in a certain light. It's gonna really limit the amount of creativity that those casting directors might have in understanding what characters you can play. So now I'm going to pull up a few different headshots, and we're going to talk about why those headshots work and why maybe those headshots are not strong and what casting directors are looking for. And just to briefly overview this, all of these things that I'm telling you now have been taught to me from the experience and advice and lessons that I've paid for, that I've sat in to listen to from a few different accredited casting directors working in the industry today that's casting real Hollywood films, television shows, and other projects. So these are really coming from these casting directors, and that's really what these casting directors are thinking. So let's quickly go over some of the basic principles that they're looking for and kind of just have some visual illustrations. And I'm going to put photos up either right here or right here, but you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to understand what I'm talking about. So something that's really important that casting directors are going to look for. The number one thing, the first thing that they're going to see, that they're going to have instant, almost attraction or some kind of interest in, is the eyes. It is so important to be able to see your eyes in the headshot, and you want to think of everything surrounding your headshot as something to just lead you towards those eyes. Casting directors, they love eyes. They love being able to make a human connection just based off of looking at your photo. If you have a lot of things going on in your headshot, no matter how good the headshot is in terms of quality, it's going to be distracting. It's going to be very distracting. It's going to feel different. It's going to maybe feel like you're in a certain location. Maybe you can only play a certain thing because you're in that location. It's going to give them all kinds of subconscious signals. Whereas if you just focus and take away all those distractions and just focus on your eyes, that is going to be super duper important. So they're looking for the eyes and they're looking for the face. They want to see your eyes and your face as flat on as possible, not from the side over here, not from these weird angles that they're doing, just flat on. They can see you, they can see your smile, or maybe you're not smiling. They want to see your eyes. That's the most important thing. Also, reducing backgrounds, right? Taking away those distracting backgrounds, and one simple thing you can do to actually reduce that background right away is just simply cropping. You just simply crop out the background so that more of the photo is just focused on your face. And you can even crop, you could probably get away with even cropping a little bit of your actual face, as long as it's taking away really, really annoying background, because casting directors, they don't like it. They're not into the backgrounds. Also, another general note when you're looking for headshots is that you're gonna wanna get a few different sort of characters, if you will, that you can play. You wanna have options. You want to have different options at your disposal, because you're not going to be submitting one single photo to everything. That would be kind of foolish, because there are lots and lots of different roles. So you want to kind of dress up a little bit. Find ways to dress up, but not overly dress. Again, you don't want to dress up too much because it's going to be distracting, right? So you want to kind of dress a little bit just to have some options, just to have a little bit of options for what you want to submit to. Is there one where you want to kind of dress as a jock? Do you feel like you're fitting into a jock? Okay, well, what about now a very smart young entrepreneur? What about somebody who looks like they work in an office, right? Are you somebody who is going to dress up like a soccer mom? Are you going to be suggesting that in your headshots? Or are you going to also want to suggest some sort of CEO figure, some sort of corporate leadership figure in, say, the professional world, right? If you tailor all of these things, all of these dots that you have towards the design of your headshot, starting with the wardrobe, just to suggest it, it's going to help a lot, because you're not going to want to submit that soccer mom photo where you're maybe, in like a sweater vest and, you're looking like you're just hanging out at home. You're not going to want to submit that to something that's going to be like a role that's looking for like tough CEO, hard-ass woman, right? That's not gonna really work. It's gonna have a dissonance, if you will, when they're looking at it. Whereas if you are dressed the part, you look like you work in a CEO office, you look like you work in the corporate setting, and you look strong, that's gonna fit that role a lot better. So let's take a look at some headshots I have here, starting with some of the bad ones, and we're gonna talk about why it's bad. And again, these photos, they're not bad at all. They're great photos, but for headshots, they're not the best headshots that they can be. And I'm gonna go ahead and also pull up some really good headshots so that you can see the contrast to those bad headshots. So let's go ahead and take a look at the very first headshot that we have here. So this is headshot number 1. So here's the issue with this headshot. Right off the bat, there's too many things going on. The background is extremely distracting. When we look at this, we're looking at the wood, right? The wood on the left, and then there's all this kind of blur on the right. and it's just too much going on. You don't get a sense of this person, and her hair is a little bit messy, which is fine. That's okay if that's how she is naturally. But normally you want things to be as least distracting as possible so they're looking right at your face. They make an instant connection. Here, at least this lady, she's looking right at us, which is a good sign. That's a great sign for a headshot. But with the lighting, the texture of that lighting, there's so much shadow on her face. That's also really, really distracting. And we can't really get a good look at her face. We can't really get a good look at her eyes because she's also has her head tilted. It's a very unnatural photo. So if I was her, the first thing that I would do is probably actually crop that photo so that now we're able to see mainly just her face. Because again, you don't want any backgrounds in the back there. That's the most distracting thing. So even just by cropping it, you remove the background, at least your face is in focus. Cool. So now let's take a look at the second photo. So this second photo, again, it's a great photo. It's very high quality. The person shooting it obviously knows what they're doing in terms of making a solid headshot. But I don't know why they decided to shoot this in a street. Maybe they were looking to put them in a more natural environment. But it's just distracting, especially because it surrounds his face completely. When you look at this photo, you're immediately looking at the cars, you're immediately looking at the tree in the background, the green. It takes away from it. If there's a way that he could crop it and just put a flat, solid colored background behind him, it would look so much stronger because we're just suddenly glued to him, his eyes, his smile. But unfortunately, the background is just a little bit too distracting. Doesn't quite work. So let's take a look at background number 3. So background number 3 is nice because it kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier, where you want to kind of dress the part. You want to dress the part for the headshot so that they can immediately picture you in this role. And this guy does a great job because he's dressed, with glasses, he's got his shirt, he has a suit on, he looks like he works in an office. And the great thing about these glasses is I'm pretty sure he took the lenses out because there's no reflection. There's a lot of light and there's absolutely zero reflection. So you can tell he put those glasses on and it was specifically made to make him look like he's wearing glasses when in reality he probably doesn't wear glasses because there's no lens. A lens would have a lot of bounce. You would be able to see the light streaks off of that lens. So this is great. However, it's almost like he's trying too hard to be this character because he's literally taking this in what looks like a little office area. It looks almost like a corporate, almost like a company headshot, something that you would put onto your LinkedIn, right? So it just looks a little bit out of place. And also the framing of this original photo is a little strange. If this was the full-size image where you submit it to a casting director, the casting director would, 1, have problems with it because it's horizontal, and 2, he's not in the center. He's not even in the center of the image. He's on the left side. So you're looking at the left side and you're wondering what's going on the right side. And then you start thinking, oh, are those white chairs in the background? Maybe that's a table. And then what time of day is it? It looks like there's some natural light outside. You start to get really distracted. So again, a simple solution, crop it, at least get rid of the entire right side there, just so we can see that at least it's him completely in focus. And to be honest, if he shot this in a blank background in a studio where it's controlled and all the background is taken away, or it's much less background going on, then that would look great. Because even if we crop it, you can still see some black lines. I don't know if you see them, but it makes a black line there, and it's just kind of distracting. It could have been done a little bit better. Again, cropping it would solve it, but cropping can only do so much. I've seen better. And I have seen better because now we're literally gonna look at some good headshots. So let's take a look at a good headshot here. So this is a great headshot. So why is this a great headshot? Well, because again, the first thing you see right off the bat, his eyes. You immediately see his eyes. It's kind of the same concept. He's dressed in this suit. He's dressed in this collared shirt with a tie. It's a little bit loose, so he has that kind of carefree vibe with the curly hair. You could tell his hair is really well done, and that's something to keep in mind too. Is that his hair, it looks sharp, and you immediately see the eyes. Everything almost kind of leads towards those eyes, right? They really pop out. And I think that's what casting directors are really, really looking for. Second photo here. This is a great one. Look at that. That's the first thing you see is this person here. You know, you see her right away. You see her eyes. Everything leads to her eyes right away. And the background is non-existent. It's just her, and that's it. The photo is literally just about her smile. Her hair's pretty nicely done too. You know, it's a great photo all around, great smile. You want to be warm and you want to be welcoming, you know, and a smile is the best way to do it. So there you have it. We've taken a look at some headshots and we've seen which ones work, which ones don't work as much, and I've had a chance to kind of talk about what casting directors are looking for specifically. Hopefully, as you go ahead and you meet your headshot photographer, you are able to show him these photos or maybe talk to them about it, have an open conversation, tell them that that is what you are looking for. And also, if you're trying to figure out what kind of look you want and what kind of style is your way, you know, what sort of roles you want to be playing, it's also important to know that you shouldn't be just throwing darts blindfolded. It should be targeted and you should know what kind of looks you're going for. The best way to do this is to actually go ahead and do an experiment. Go out, ask random strangers. I know it seems weird, but trust me, I actually did this. It's really helpful. You go to your friends, you go to strangers. Strangers are best because, again, casting directors are not going to be your friends. They're going to be strangers when you first meet them. So you go to strangers, you ask them, what do you see me as? If I was an actor, what kind of roles can you see me as? And a lot of these roles are going to sort of be some of the things you want to look for, because that might actually be your best chance of booking your first job, because your first job is going to be something that you were born to play. So it's important to realize that how people view you, their perceptions of you, is going to be your most marketable trait. And it doesn't always have to deal with professions or, you know, what they see you as. It could also be personality based. You can also ask a series of personality questions, you know, based off of just your first impression. Hey, what do you think I am? What kind of personality do you think I have? Right? I did this when I first started. I went out and asked 100 people. I surveyed 100 people. I had a list of adjectives that I wrote out, and I asked them to circle which ones that they fit me, and I tallied it up, and I chose the top 6, and I based my entire headshot, my entire career, literally started off of those 6 descriptive adjectives. And that is how you make the most targeted look, the most targeted brand for yourself. That is what you're going to want to create with the headshot photographer so that you can advertise that and market that to the fullest. All right, so after our headshots, the next most important thing is actually your acting reel. Well, let me backtrack. The next most important thing is your resume. Your resume is going to be really important because that is going to show people what kind of work you've done, but it's almost so out of our control because it's going to be completely based on your past history that it's not going to be so important. Just know it's really important. A lot of films will literally cast off of resumes too, because if they see that you've been in other productions, if they see that you've been in big movies, then they're more likely to take you on because they feel like you've already done a big movie. So you know the experience. You're not going to be fresh. You're not going to waste their time. Same with the TV show. If you are in a TV show and you've been in TV shows before, and then another TV show is going to be a lot more likely to want to book you because to them it's this perception of, oh, they've had experience. Even though they might not be right for the part, they might still get it based off of the resume because it shows that they have experience, they have worked with other talented actors, they know how to be professional. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you could do is just to keep doing these things and get your first job. Get your first job, then get your second job. Get your second co-star, get your second movie role. After your second one, get your third one. Your resume will come naturally. But, you know, in terms of like making a resume, having a bunch of short films, showing them you've done a bunch of short films, independent projects, those things not really going to help in terms of building a career out of acting. It might help here and there, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's really going to be based off of your IMDb. Just if you've worked with other movie studios, if you worked with other TV studios, what kind of commercial what kind of commercials you've done, what kind of like commercial production companies you've worked with. It's going to be stuff like that outside of your control. Let's focus on things that we can control so that you could get the ball rolling. The next most important thing is your acting reel. So what is an acting reel? An acting reel is just a compilation of all of the footage that you have acted in. It's simple enough. You can look it up and look at examples of reels, but it's essentially a montage of you acting. This is great because this is going to really give the directors, the producers, the casting directors a sense of who you are, a sense of your work. This is as close as you can get actually to kind of like the resume I was talking about, to showing them that you have experience, right? Because a resume is all about showing them that you have experience. So this is the closest thing to it, by literally actually showing them what you look like in a scene in front of a camera and show them your acting talent. So what are some general pointers for an acting reel? Well, there's no real rules to an acting reel, but there are some things that I think is highly suggestible, is something that you should highly consider. For example, the length of your reel. I think no reel should be more than 2 minutes. It should be 1 minute at best, maybe 90 seconds to a minute if you've gotten to a stage where you have enough material and you really want to show off your talent. But in general, 1 minute, because to be honest, a lot of casting directors, they're not going to look at more than 30 seconds of your role. That's just the reality of how it is. They're not going to have all the time in the world. So it's important to be really, really engaging in that first minute. Just make it a minute long. And you really want to put the strongest scene first. You want to edit it so that you're acting right away. You just jumped right into it. Start with something visceral, a shot of you crying, of you bawling, of you screaming, of you laughing hysterically is very attention grabbing. It's very attention grabbing. You want to hook them right off the bat and keep them engaged. There should be no background music. Don't add background music. It should just be you acting, and it shouldn't have random reaction shots of your co-star, of other people acting alongside you. If it is completely necessary, or in the case that you share a really, really big scene with like a celebrity, like a really big name actor, then yes, including them for a few seconds is fine. But otherwise, cut it at all costs because it's all about you. They just want to see you. They don't want to see the other person reacting. It's going to be wasting their time. They just want to focus on you. And for me, I also suggest that you make those scenes. And for me, I also suggest that it's better to have a few scenes to showcase the naturalness and your comfortability in front of a camera rather than trying to use many different scenes and trying to highlight all the caricatures, all the characters that you can play. Because your goal, again, is to hook them. You're not trying to show off your characters, right? Your reel should show that you can act. You can act natural. You're not afraid of the camera. And what you do in the audition room is going to be able to showcase the characters that you can play. So they're going to see if you can be that character. A lot of people don't talk about this enough, but when you're starting off, especially for commercial acting, you want to also create reels for different skill sets that you have. Say you're a basketball player like me, right? Or you're really good at rollerblading, or you're great at weightlifting, or horseback riding, or jet skiing. Something that you have a passion in. The more passionate, the more advanced, the more skilled you are at that one thing, the more you want to create a reel and actually try to market yourself off of that, because chances are the more specific and skilled you are, the more niche you become, so that when they're looking for someone who's really skilled in that and can also act, their first choice is going to be you, and you're going to blow the competition out of the water because you are exactly what they are looking for with the skill set that they are looking for. This also brings me to a similar point, creating your own content so that you can control what goes into your reel. When you are playing yourself, that is when it's the strongest sort of material that you're going to have, because you're literally playing you. You're literally playing who you are. You're going to be so natural. It's going to feel like you are the character. So it's important to write content for yourself so that you are able to play yourself, so to speak, but you're writing yourself into those roles. You're writing yourself into roles that you are, maybe your situations, and figure out a way to shoot it, work it out, save up some money, invest in a good reel, invest in maybe shooting a scene, because that scene, one, you can turn into a short film, maybe submit it, it could go somewhere, but two, you could use that, add it to your reel, and that is going to be super important because it could jumpstart your career. It could really make or break a callback, an audition, getting you in the room, impressing the director or producer and telling them that that is who you are and that you have had that experience acting in front of a camera. And finally, we're going to talk about landing an agent. and also the other career administration responsibilities that we can expand on to talk about your career. So let's start with this. The truth is, there's not going to be one single path, right? Every career in the arts will be totally unique, and finding representation is really the same way. You know, your agent can literally come from anywhere. You can find them from a cold call, you know, at an acting showcase, at a film festival. That's actually where I met my manager, was at a film festival. And what's important is that you're always staying active and you're always taking action to further your career, because that's the driving force that's going to land you into the opportunity for you to meet someone who can change your life, who can be your agent, your representation, who can start getting you seen in front of casting directors, who can then introduce you to these directors, these producers at this movie studio and get you in a movie, right? It all starts with taking action. Action, action, action. And the number one place that you can start right off the bat is a solid acting class. Again, I've said this before, but an acting class where you're surrounded by like-minded people who are more talented, smarter and wiser than you is going to be tremendous for your career, because these friends are going to be incredible sources of opportunity and knowledge for you. You know, they're going to want it as bad as you, so you guys are going to bounce off of each other and you guys are going to be able to really help each other out and share resources. So now that you have everything ready, you have all the work, you know, you have your resume, your reel, your headshot lined up, well, now it's time to start looking for representation. It's time to really land an agent, a manager, right? So how do you start? Well, you start by literally just cold submitting to them. Of course, there are many different ways you're gonna meet your agent, your manager. Maybe you meet them because they're your roommate, right? And they find out you're an actor. That's happened. That's happened before. I know friends who's legitimately actually met their managers and agents that way. But probably not. You're fresh to LA. You're gonna wanna submit to as many agencies as possible. So how do you do that? Well, it's important to not just cold submit. It's important to not just throw out your resume, literally like you're tossing it out, handing it to anybody who's willing to take it. That is not the way to go. It's gonna feel like spam, because that's what it is. You're spamming people. So you don't want to spam your resume, your headshot, your reel when you're looking for representation. You want to be targeted. You want it to look like you've done the research and that agency is the exact one that you're looking for, and that they will be honored to have you be repped by them, right? So how do you do that? When you're looking to break into the industry, you want to make sure that you know what shows you want to be on. You should already have done the research for where you fit. So as an actor, what can I do? What is my shows that I could be in? What is my category? What is my brand? What is the characters I can play that is the most convincing to strangers, right? All of these things should be targeted. For example, me, you know, I'm a young guy. I could probably play smart, intellectual college guy, high school kid. You know, I could play all of these things. I have the athleticism and the physique to play a jock if I really wanted to, or, you know, maybe like a frat guy with, I don't know, with this polo. I kind of look like I could be in a frat, right? So these are all little categories that I could be in. So it's important to realize this, condense it, and then start looking for agencies that rep those kind of actors, that have the resources to take you as you are right now and connect them immediately with casting directors whom they have relationships with. A simple method I use to do this is by IMDb cross-referencing. So what I do is I look for the targeted shows that I could be on, and I create that from a list of casting directors, right? You look at the casting directors who cast these shows, or you look at the actors that are in these shows, and you look at who they're repped by. And to do this, it's really quite simple. You just have to get IMDb Pro. It's a paid subscription service, but if you're a working actor, you really should have it anyway. You go on IMDb Pro and you look at the shows that you really want to be on, that you know you could be in, that you have a good chance in. Like it's a no-brainer. Has a friend ever told you, hey, you would be great in this show? That's the shows that you want to start looking for. That's the shows that you want to start cross-referencing for, right? So you look for these shows, you look for the actors, then you find their agency and you start making a tally. And you try to look at which shows have the most actors that's repped by that agency. Some shows, literally, maybe there's 20 people in that show. 5 of them, 10 of them will be from one single agency. Yes, it's that crazy. Casting directors have that kind of connection with certain agencies. So that is how you start looking for agencies that you want to be a part of. because those are superstar agencies. Those are agencies where they're gonna have those connections and they're gonna be able to really pick you up right away, and they're going to be able to put you into those shows that you are targeted for. Now, how do you make these pitches to the agent, right? Well, usually you wanna do it through email, but a lot of times agencies will have strict policies. Some agencies totally not into cold emailing. They will literally have on their website, we do not accept cold emails for looking for representation, because they know everybody in the world is trying to get representation through these agencies. And it's important to just do that research. It's important to do that. Sometimes, on IMDb Pro, those agents might not even have their contacts on there because they're so against it. They don't want to even be found. But my general rule of thumb in knowing which ones you can cold email and you can submit for is to just look and see if they have a policy. Great, Google it. If they have a website, whatever. If they don't have anything where they say we don't look at open submissions, or they have one and you have to go through their specific platform to submit. Every agency is a little bit different. Some of them totally strict, some of them, they don't really care. But the way I see it is if it's on there and you have the contacts, it's out there in public, right? And they don't have anything that says we are not looking at open submissions, then that means that their doors are open. They want to be found. They want actors to go ahead and pursue them. So that's exactly what you should be doing. You should be looking at agencies who are open to that, who have an open submission policy, and submit to as many of those agencies as possible so that you can get repped. Now, submitting to an agency is also an art in itself, because you don't really want to just, again, throw out your flyer, right? It's not like spam. They're gonna read through it. If it's some generic sort of concept, then they're gonna see through that so fast. What you wanna do is you wanna be super laser specific. You have to know your brand so well, and it has to read right off the bat through your headshots, through your photos, through your personality, and you should pitch it as creatively as possible so they know who you are. They know this is your personality. They can get it by looking at you, by reading your essay, and when they meet you, they'll also be able to kind of get that vibe, right? So be creative, because the more creative and comfortable you are with that pitch, the more interesting you are going to seem to them. It's going to be more fascinating for that agency to look at a resume, a pitch that is just more interesting. You're having fun, right? But again, it's also that fine balance of you're there to do a job, right? You're there to pursue a career, a business partner. It shouldn't be all over the place just about your personality. It should really show that you are a professional, meaning you cross-reference the shows you want to be in. You know that those shows are shows that their actors have actually been in, right? If you have all of these things, if you've done all of these researches and you tell them, hey, these are my dream shows that I want to be in. These are the auditions, these are the casting directors I've already auditioned for. If you have had representation like me, before I got my agent, I had a manager, and I actually have gone into a few auditions. And that really helped because I was able to sort of just have some experience. So before they even took me, they knew I had representation. They knew I'd actually gone into these casting offices and that I've made an impression, right? So it's important to have all of these lined up so that by the time you meet them, by the time they're ready to make a decision on if they even want to meet you or not, they are already like, wow, this guy's a real working professional. He wants to work. He's being professional. He's ambitious, and he's done his homework. That's the number one thing that they're going to be looking for is this guy or is this girl, have they done their homework, and are they appealing, and do they know what they're doing? Because they're not going to want to take the risk of working with someone who's just totally lost and is going to waste everybody's time. What's next after you finally land your agent? Well, this is where your career is really going to probably start taking off, because that's when the doors have opened, so to speak. Pretty soon, you're going to be entering lots of casting offices. You're going to be meeting lots of casting directors. And it's important to realize that that process of casting is actually very, very different from acting on a film set. It's almost a completely different ball game. It's incredibly different. The environment is different, and it's a different skill set. going into a casting room and doing the casting process is really a different part of the job. Although it all falls in line with, the career of acting, it's almost like really doing a different process of the job when you're actually bringing your talents onto a film set. You've gotten the part and now you're working with the director and making this balance of telling his story. The casting room is super important. It's super important. Every actor goes through it. Careers are made in the casting room. So in our next episode, we're going to dive into that. We're going to break down the casting room, and you're going to learn the do's and the don'ts and the tips I have for you to kill the casting room and book your next gig. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this lesson was valuable and you've learned a lot, and I will see you in our next chapter.